Once again, we sit down for a discussion we call Attempted Intelligence. This time, what we are going to do is consider sayings that we both heard over time that we either appreciated or did not appreciate, and maybe discuss how, although they're sayings that may be common under certain circumstances, i.e. in certain groups, where they're claimed to carry wisdom, but you're like, what? What do you mean?
Right.
I don't understand. So the one that I remember hearing, and I believe when I started hearing it, it was new information, especially geared or aimed at people who were lifting heavy objects, especially regularly at work. And it was lift with your legs, not with your back. And well, that's like, I thought about that when I was young, and yeah, lift with your legs, not with your back. Like, well, how do you not use a part of your body?
I was going to ask you.
I would like to switch it, if I could, to keep effort and load as close as possible at all times. So if a box is over here and I grab it like this, right, then the problem is the effort is closer to, it is within my body and the load is far away. If I either walk to the box, or realistically I should just walk to the box. I shouldn't try to drag it. I go to the box.
Right.
I glue it to me somehow, not actual glue, don't do that, but I hold it in such a way that it's essentially stuck to my body.
As close as possible.
And then I stand up. Right? Now I might have to slide it up my body, whatever. But I stand up and I just kind of hold on to it. Then I have lifted with my legs, but I also have lifted with my back. And then as I transport it from place A to place B, I'm using everything. It's just, what I've done is I've approximated effort and load. So a better way to say it maybe, keep the heavy thing as close to you and as stuck to you as you can.
She's like, hey, keep the heavy thing close to you as possible.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Just as close as I can get it. No, I think it needs to be closer. Right? So, obviously, the way that I'm saying it, you would probably have to show somebody one or two ways to do that. But lift with your legs, not with your back. Because have you seen people who are bad deadlifters?
Not overly. Like I've seen,
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. So, essentially what you'll see is somebody's spine look like a C. Because they've attempted to lift a load that's heavier than they can move off of the ground, and then what ends up happening is their legs have already started to straighten out, and it didn't come off the ground. So that people are saying they're trying to do the deadlift with their back. I'm like, no, they couldn't move it with their legs.
Right.
They can't move it. Right. So, or they're going to have an extremely hard time. So it's just a better way to say it. The most accurate way is keep effort and load as close as possible at all times, but kind of stick the thing to your body. Now, another one that when I hear this is a very irrational thing for me to think, but when I hear this saying, I literally believe my maternal grandmother's going to come back to life and rip somebody a new one. Do you remember my granny? Did you meet her?
No, I didn't.
Okay. I find that interesting. But that's fine. The common saying is you have 2 eyes, 2 ears, 1 mouth, do the math. So essentially the translation would be watch and listen more, talk less.
Right.
I feel like this woman who was barely 5'1" would come back and poke you right in the chest and say, you've got a tongue in your mouth, you use it, you ask questions, or you'll never know. But the idea being that that also maps well, the 2 eyes, 2 ears, 1 mouth maps well to children so to be seen and not heard.
Yes.
She's like, no, those children need to learn how to talk and ask questions so they can learn. So if you sit in a corner and only watch and only observe, then essentially you're stuck not being active.
Sounds like you're related.
We are. Very much so. The odd thing, for whatever reason, the pattern seems to be from her genetic lineage, red hair every other generation. Right? And then people, when I was young and my hair was much more clearly red, which it's not clearly red anymore. My hair's a bit of a mood ring, it changes color. It's an odd thing. My beard, I think, is still fairly red.
It's red tinge.
Yeah. Anyways, everybody would see my red hair when I was young and say, oh, good Irish boy. I'm like, no, this is Scottish. Right? It was actually from the Scottish lineage, or what we would call a Scottish lineage. And I'm like, well, I'm pretty positive there was some mixing and some stuff. I don't know how this is every other generation,
Right.
but it is observably every other generation.
That's so interesting.
And I don't know the genetic explanation for that. I'm sure it is something, but I don't know. All right. Anyways, yes, we're related. Do you have some sayings?
There was one I always heard, and it was always confusing, and I really never looked into it. And it was, you can't have your cake and eat it too.
Okay.
And the thing, because when I was younger,
Did it ever make sense to you until you sent it to me?
no,
Like no sense whatsoever.
not at all.
Okay.
So I was sitting there thinking, well, how are you gonna eat? How are you gonna have cake? How are you gonna eat cake if you don't have it? And I was like, what's the point of having cake if you don't eat it?
Yeah.
I was like, what's wrong with these people? Why would you do that?
So, this is where some sayings, when not properly explained, you will say it because like, well, this seems like the right time to say it. And everybody goes, right. So you're like, I'm in on the culture.
Right.
The concept of you cannot have your cake and eat it too is really more so referring to change of state.
Okay.
So having cake means that it is in a given form and it stays that way. Eating cake means that there is an act that makes it change its state. So once you have eaten the cake, you no longer have the entirety of the cake.
So my confusion comes from the association of having cake as eating cake.
Yeah.
Like if I have cake, I'm eating it.
Yeah, I have it as eating cake. This is what happens. So the more appropriate way to speak that concept is you cannot keep your cake and eat it too.
All right.
Right? So it's referring to a change of state. So
right.
You can't hold on to something and have it change at the same time.
Right.
Right? Then you can get into really weird metaphysical things, and it's like, well, the only place the cake is real is in my brain, so I can always have it. Which is an ontological kind of right? Like the reality.
Right.
The only things that are real are my thoughts, so I have the cake all the time. There's never a time that I don't have the cake. It's like, I don't think that's the point of this thing.
Right.
Was there not any others that came to you that you care to share?
There was one that I always heard. It was mostly in a family context, but it was.
Am I right that we're on the same wavelength about the family member?
Yes.
Okay.
So it was always better late than never.
Yeah.
And I was sitting there thinking, well, if you're late for the thing that you were expected for, it really should be never. Like just
don't come.
Yeah. Just
well, you might be of that opinion because that individual, you would be quite happy not coming.
Fair enough.
Right? Is that
fair? That's fair.
Okay.
That's fair.
I don't know if I'm putting thoughts in your head, but based on my analysis, I'm like, well, if you're gonna be late and we expect you to be here, just don't come.
Yeah.
The problem is, the places that the event would often happen is where they live.
Yeah.
They're late to their own house. Yeah. So okay. Anything else on that before I maybe?
No. It was just the when it was always coming up. It always seemed very convenient that you would just say that, and then everyone goes ha ha ha, and then they would brush it off. But I'm like, but they're still late.
Yeah. It tells me to be early.
Yeah, we were waiting. Well, it's better too early than too late. That was another one I heard.
So, I think the challenge you're pointing to with those two statements about timing is more that you've seen it used as an abdication of responsibility by a late asshole. Is that fair?
Yes, that's
right?
fair.
It's just it's the abdication of responsibility to a common social trope. Right? Then the other thing is that this person, again, maybe same wavelength, would say something that could say something that they're on West Indian time or Caribbean time. Is that something they would say?
Yeah.
Unless I'm out of my mind, the Caribbean is on Eastern Standard Time. And we live in Eastern Standard Time. Now, I believe there are some islands that do not do daylight savings time. Okay. So there is a portion of the year whereby we would be on a different time.
Right.
But it's kind of the same. It's just you forgot to change the clock, like I do in my car.
Yeah.
I don't forget to change my clock. I don't do it. I do it on purpose. I just don't care. And I know what it is.
You can do the math.
Whatever. It's just an hour. The minute's right, the hour's wrong. So, but the abdication of responsibility to a social trope. And then that person can leverage the concept that is generated in multiple ways, whereby people will claim that those who are from the Caribbean tend to be late. I have not found this to be a true thing across the board.
Yeah.
I do know people who are from the English-speaking Caribbean who do leverage this concept to their benefit, where they come at the time that works for them for whatever set of reasons, and then they can say, well, Caribbean time, right? Or West Indies time. Like, because there are people that I know who are from that region, or their parents from that region, and they're chronically early, almost uncomfortably early.
Right.
So I'm like, well, this is clearly not true of all people that have origins in that region. So, fair enough. Anyways, I think that the key comes back to the abdication of responsibility, because the idea of better late than never, when it's been used in your life in a way that's been negative or not positive.
Fair enough.
Maybe not negative, but not positive.
Right.
And confusing.
Yeah.
Because there is the reality that there are some things it is better late than never. Let's just say, for various reasons, you never entered into an educational stream that you were interested in, and then all of a sudden you're 34 and you figure out you have the opportunity to do it, and you want to do it, but then you're like, oh, it's too late. No, better late than never.
Yeah.
There are some things that are like that, and in the context that I think you heard it in, it was for a specified event where things would have started and at a specific time and progressed.
Correct.
In order.
Yeah.
So they missed almost everything, and
Right.
they just have leftovers, and then they probably complained about the fact that they didn't have a certain thing.
Yeah, the same. Yeah, the same as everyone else. Well, you didn't show up on time.
Yeah. Well, you should have saved some for me. Right. So okay. So any other sayings that you liked or bugged you?
There's one that I heard you mention, and I'm glad that we didn't talk about it, but it was customer's always right.
Okay.
And that one, it got me thinking, and I was sitting there thinking, always? Like, always?
Yeah. Yeah. So the customer's always right. I don't know exactly when that came into common parlance, at least in the region that you and I live. I don't know how far spread that is. I feel like it's at least a North American thing. I feel like, but I mean, shoot, how would I know? I haven't gone out and figured this out.
It's a feeling.
Yeah, it's fine. So we'll take it as that.
Yeah.
But the concept the customer is always right is essentially pointing towards do what the customer is asking to maintain the relationship between you and the customer, right? So if they want a discount, give them a discount because they're right. If they're complaining about service, well, they have to be right. So give them, it's almost like another way of saying give them the benefit of the doubt all the time.
Okay.
I'm like, well. So the simple reality within a customer service setting is that the customer is aiming to gain access to a product or service. Reasonable?
Yeah.
Okay. The customer's here, the product or service is here, and there is some form of intermediary. Right about here.
Mm-hmm.
In today's world, is this always a person?
No.
Could it be a computer?
Yeah.
Could be a computer. Or some form of computer-based interface through the internet whereby there is software.
Right.
Now, can software glitch?
Yep.
So it could glitch. Can a human glitch such that there's a misunderstanding between the customer and the intermediary?
When you say glitch, essentially just make error?
Make error such that there's miscommunication.
Yes.
Okay, so that can happen. Can the customer be less than explicit in their communication for what they're looking for?
Yes.
Okay, so there's multiple points of failure. Is that fair?
Yes.
Right. But the idea is that there's customer, product or service, intermediary. If this is me, I want to get here. There's something between me and there. The reality of me saying that I have desires that I either explicitly or implicitly communicated, and you did not meet them because you did not hear or understand, because points of breakdown, points of failure, and then now you must give me everything.
Right.
Right. I have a huge problem with that as a human being. Not as somebody who worked in customer service for a long time, because I worked in customer service for a long time, and I said, oh, you don't get it. Oh, you think you're funny because I haven't heard this question 1,000 times today.
Right.
I can't get mad at you because you think you're slick. You literally haven't seen all the other individuals I've seen. So it's actually not that side that I'm informed by. It's I want the product or service over there. So because you're in between me, let's just say you're in between me and the product or service, I am going to be as nice to you as I can be. The second you give me a no, I'm like, okay, thank you. Now, some people might say, well, you're just kind of like, bowing down. And I'm like, no. Because I'm not the person who's able to go and literally grab the product or service. You are required to do it for me. Right. So if I am rough with you, and you are human, there is the opportunity. You're not going to make up things from nowhere just to not give me what I'm looking for. Right. But you could become extra strict on the rules.
Yes.
Extra strict. Yeah. And for everything that I do that annoys you, you get even more strict. Right. Right? To the point where any private business is able to refuse service. They're completely able to. Yeah. Right? So to me, I'm like, well, I want that. I purposely want it. I came here for it. I'm going to be nice to you. Right? So the idea of the customer is always right is really saying give them the benefit of the doubt to maintain the relationship. And that creates an interesting power dynamic because then who's really the carrier of the power? Right. The business or the customer. So the business then takes on the position of begging for you to stay. Please, baby, please, yeah. Please stay. Please, baby, don't leave. I love you. Oh, you're my sunshine. Right? It's no. I think that's setting up a poor power dynamic. And if the customer was always right, say they ask me a question, say you're a customer and you ask me a question, how could you possibly be right? You don't know the information. You can't be right. So there's multiple layers on which that's a problem. Right. So it's just something quick to say, give them the benefit of the doubt and give them what they want so they stay.
See, my problem with that too is that if someone as the customer understands that is the dynamic, well, would they not abuse that on purpose?
Maybe.
They could?
I'm going, oh. But realistically the answer is more of a maybe. Because it's possible, and sometimes they are modeling after people who are whiners in customer service settings. There are cultures where if you don't attempt to bargain, you're not shopping. Right? Now, they're all over the world, and they are neither right nor wrong. Mm-hmm. They exist. Right. And when you, as somebody from one culture, as a customer service representative, are encountering somebody from another culture, neither one of you knows that the way that you're going to do this is not the same as the other. Right. So you immediately, because you can't see beyond your own face, you can't see beyond what you already know, you're saying, wow, they're cheap. Or, wow, this guy doesn't even want to bargain. Does he even want my business? Right? So you get these dynamics where people just don't understand each other. Right? So the customer is not always right. The customer is almost never right. The customer is presenting to obtain a product or service. And if there happens to be an intermediary, it is intelligent for both the customer and the intermediary to be nice to one another and try to develop an understanding.
So how would we reword that phrase, that sentence?
Each one of us is probably wrong most of the time and act with an appropriate degree of uncertainty, especially when you're attempting to gain access to a goal. Right? Yeah, too many words and stuff. Right. Right? Like, that's not smooth. That doesn't flow off the tongue. So you can keep saying the customer's always right, and then I can come in and say, but wait, are you sure about that? Right. And it also essentially opens the door epistemologically to mutated constructivism, which essentially is saying, well, I'm right. I'm the arbiter of truth. No, talk to your manager. You're going to give me this. Do you even know who I am? Right? The stuff that I've heard from people, not actually directed at me in customer service situations. I worked in customer service situations for a very long time. And this did not happen to me. Oh. I think that might be my personality, though. I've seen some things. I've heard some things. And when somebody would, say, ask for a discount on a product, I'd say, I have no way to say yes or no. Like, well, who does? And I'm like, supervisor? I said, well, can you talk to your supervisor? I said, you can. I said, well, can you talk to them for me? Because maybe they'll listen to you better. I'm like, I'm not the one that wants the discount. Were you around when somebody would ask me which color shoe I liked better? No. You were never around for that? There were people when I was working in a footwear department, which shoe color do you think goes better with this? I'm not the guy to ask, well, you work here, isn't it your job to provide advice on how things look? I'm like, no. Not at all.
Yeah.
I'm here to help you figure out what piece of footwear is going to suit your needs the best.
Yeah.
I'm also here to get it for you and give it to you, and possibly in multiple sizes so you can go purchase the one that you prefer. I'm like, I am not your fashion. I don't even consider anything that I have to say about fashion. I have a legitimate distaste, not for buttons themselves, but for how people view buttons down the middle of a shirt. I think buttons are fine. Perfectly logical fastening device. I just hate the meaning that people put onto buttons. Don't ask me about fashion. Wrong guy. I did not have particularly difficult customer service situations as somebody who's providing customer service.
Right.
But I think that's more me.
Yeah. Well, it's one of those things. If I had that response when I said, "Hey, can you just tell me?" and you had that response, I'd be like, "Okay, can I have a size half bigger,
Yeah.
please?"
Yeah. And there was no malice in it.
Right.
I was like, I'm not the one you want to ask. Trust me.
Agreed.
So, anyways, the saying that I'd like to put in.
I was just gonna ask you, is there anyone that you like, or?
But that's my job. Thank you. There is. The one that I actually appreciate, right? And growing up with as many people from the English-speaking Caribbean as I did, it makes sense to me. I didn't have to think about this one,
Okay.
right? But monkey knows which branch to jump on, right? Now, I don't know how many Caribbean islands monkeys actually exist on. I'm actually not sure,
Okay.
right? I know they're in Barbados,
Okay.
right? The green monkeys are in Barbados, but that's what I know.
Right.
I'm going to guess that there are monkeys on tropical islands.
Okay.
But the saying is monkey knows which branch to jump on. And I've heard it from people from multiple Caribbean islands, right? English speaking specifically, not Spanish speaking. English speaking.
Okay.
And not French speaking either. English speaking.
Okay.
The cultures are different.
Okay.
They just are. Similar environments, but different cultures.
Okay.
But monkey knows which branch to jump on. And do you know what that means?
I was just assuming that security and safety, like the certainty of moving from one place to another.
And so are you saying that in the monkey's eyes or translating broadly?
The monkey's eyes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So fair enough. But the saying is to translate an observation from the natural world into how you may guide your decisions, or how to explain why somebody did something.
I can't explain that one.
Okay. Because a monkey is not going to jump on a branch that's going to break. So if somebody's applying pressure to another individual, they're doing it to the person who's not going to break. And they're also doing it to the person who they know is going to bend to their will. Right? So if you're the monkey and you start pressuring me for something, are you going to get what you want?
No.
If you're pressuring me.
Well, no.
No. But if you pressure somebody else in your life, are they going to cave and give it to you?
It's possible, yeah.
Right? Could you think of people that you will not name, but could you think of people that you could say, hey, come on, give it a go.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And
like even just that sentence, come on.
yeah.
Done.
Yeah. Yeah. And there would be no pushback. They'd be, what is that? Whereas in the case of the dynamic between you and I,
Right.
you're like, come on, Sam. My head would
It's like, oh, I messed up.
Again, it's the dynamic between you and I. I would say that extends the dynamic between me and most people. That's why my life is fun. Another one. My dad had two sayings that just the entirety of my goddamn life. It's like, this is so stupid, right? One of them he would say is, you can call me anything, just don't call me late for dinner. And because I'm thinking literally, I'm not translating anything, calling you late for dinner is the dumbest insult of all time. That doesn't even hurt your feelings. Why would I call you late for dinner?
So like actually calling him like as a name?
Yes, late for dinner. Right? I'm like, well, wouldn't that just be an observation that you were late for dinner? After my dad was no longer alive, it was just running through my head. I was like, oh, you can call me any vile name you like. Just don't inform me late about dinner time. Tell me when dinner is prepared so I may eat it in a timely fashion.
Right.
It's like, I'm terribly sorry. I never got that while you were alive.
Yeah.
Right. The other one was, he would say, and this is one that I would be like, what, no. well, you can't beat that with a lead pipe. Like, you can literally beat anything with a lead pipe. It just may not do anything. Some things will like break, some things will cry, some things will fall. Other things, your hand will shake a lot because of the reverberations, because the other object was harder than the goddamn lead pipe.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you can beat anything with a lead pipe. What the hell does that mean? I'm like, and I'm still not 100% sure about that one. I think it was, well, that's a pretty good deal.
So could you use that in context?
You would tell me about a small win in your day, and I'm like, well, you can't beat that with a lead pipe. Well, like, couldn't you just say, well, that's a pretty good deal? You did good.
Yeah, congratulations.
Fantastic. But no, you just say you can't beat that with a lead pipe. Now, this is me lacking an understanding of the context of the specific portion of Detroit, the greater Detroit area that he came from, and the time that he came from. I feel like I understand it because I'm like, my dad. But I don't know that I actually understand it.
Right.
There's things that I get and things that I don't get. And anyways, any other sayings come to mind that you enjoy or piss you off?
Every cloud has a silver lining. It bothers me in the sense that it means.
Don't worry about what it means. Tell me how you feel. Now remember, when you start talking, if I start to push back, we're gonna both agree that I already asked you. Tell me how you feel.
Fair enough. I just feel it's missing something. I feel like it's,
so what makes you feel like it's missing something? What do you think the missing piece is, or do you know what the missing piece is, or what the hell made you feel that way?
Well, just when I imagine clouds, I imagine white, fluffy, summertime clouds, but then I also imagine dark storm clouds.
Sure.
So understanding that every cloud has a silver lining, I'm not imagining fluffy white clouds to have a silver lining because they're already, bright white, and I'm imagining the darker ones to have some type of lighter brightness into it.
And it's because generally speaking, we would call them somewhere between gray and black, so you would figure that the thing that was inside them would be darker than that white fluffy cloud.
Right.
Okay, so it's a very superficial read. Is that fair?
Yes.
Right? Like, well, no, clouds are different colors at different times for different reasons. Like, those white fluffy clouds aren't going to rain on me.
Yeah.
Is that fair?
Yes.
Okay. Very superficial read. To me, the moment I hear every cloud has a silver lining, I immediately say, oh, all hardships come with positivity.
All
right? But if you're still being more literal, it's like, well, how can you see inside a cloud? I've been on a plane, they go through clouds, it's all white.
Yeah.
What's wrong with you? And if they're through dark clouds, you go through them, and then on the way through the clouds, it's rain. It's what it's doing.
Yeah.
You don't know what kind of lining. And how do you get to the middle of a cloud? How do you know you're in the middle of a cloud? You're flying. You can't stay still in the middle of a cloud, right? So
yeah,
you can
do
all
just
of
keep
this
going.
stuff.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But to me, the moment I hear that, just because of whatever set of circumstances brought that comment to me, was hardships have positivity if seen through the right angle. And that is better described more accurately by, hey, Gestalt shift, Betty. Like, just same piece of information, different angle, and you'll see something else.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? So if a cloud, based on what you understand about white, is it a color when people get semantic?
No.
Right? What is it?
I believe it's a shade.
Okay, is that technically accurate? Is that accurate in reality? The reality of the spec.
Like social understanding.
No, is that accurate in the reality of spectrum, the spectrum of wavelengths of light?
Well, no.
No. Essentially, a wavelength of light, right, is going to bounce off of something and then return something.
Mm-hmm.
And the differentiation between things is we essentially draw some classifications internally, as far as I understand. And as humans, we can't see the majority of the wavelengths of light. Like, we literally can't. We can see a very small portion.
Right.
So the idea of white, if we're going to describe it as to what a human's getting, is essentially all visible light is present, therefore it looks like it has no color.
Right.
Right? But, light red to medium red to dark red, those are shades of the same wavelength.
Right.
But realistically, they're not even the same wavelength. They're just literally a different wavelength. We experience them differently enough that we would draw a distinction.
Right.
Right? So it's like, no, everything's a shade. What the heck's your problem? Right? So people will say that black and white are shades, they're not colors, so black would be considered the absence of light.
Right.
However, in a well-lit room, that is the reason we started it, so we can use the concepts of epistemology, ontology, or the basis of the philosophy of science, and go through whether or not we're explicit in everything. And I do know that it cut off. I was trying to be slick. And if you watch this far, thank you. But yeah, the idea is that interject or introduce the ideas of the philosophy of science and then use them to guide investigation into whatever phenomena we choose to talk about, and then sometimes do it explicitly or implicitly. With common phrases, it's a little bit harder to do. It's not impossible, but possibly harder.
I was going to say, it was challenging, but you still did it.
Careful. Don't make me feel too smart. That's one of the sayings that I've created that I appreciate, and I think you appreciate, is there will be times when there is what could be called a small victory, especially with respect to understanding or thought. I'm like, ha, look how smart I feel. Not how smart I am, how smart I feel.
Yeah.
Because what I'm really reporting is the sensation in relation to the event,
Right.
not the objective reality of my intelligence.
Exactly. I can't argue that.
Yeah.
Like, look how smart I feel. Okay.
I happen to appreciate the way that I deliver it because I tend to do it dryly.
Yes.
Ha! Look how smart I feel. Ha! Anyways, it works for me. Any other concepts to add?
Not at this time.